Hello, by the end of today's lesson, you should be able to add, subtract, multiply, and divide using scientific notation. Once again, if you don't have your notes set up in Cornell Notes, please pause the video and get that set up. The first thing we're going to talk about is how to add with scientific notation. The key here is that you have to make sure that the powers on 10 are the same. So let's take these two numbers, add 3.1 times 10 to the 8th plus 3.38 times 10 to the 7th. Now if you notice, these two numbers do not have the same power on 10. So one way we can add these together is take them out of scientific notation. Go ahead and move this 8 spaces over, move this 7 spaces over, and then add the two numbers together and then revert it back to scientific notation. And that is 100% okay. However, a lot of times that is a longer way to do things. So my suggestion would be to take this number and simply move this decimal over one more place. Technically, you're taking it out of scientific notation, but that'll give you 0.338 times 10 to the 8th. Okay? Then when we do that, we can add it to this one. So I'll show you how we do that. So once again, I'm going to move this decimal one space over, and that means I'm going to add 1 up there. Then I line up the decimals. So it'll be 338 times 10 to the 8th. And now I just add them up. This stays the same because these are equivalent there. So it's going to be times 10 to the 8th still. And this here, I'll just add up. Remember, there's zeros across here. So adding up here, 8, 3, 4, point. The key when adding or subtracting is that the power on 10 has to be the same.
When adding or subtracting,
And then, if they're not, you need to move the decimal
move the decimal
So move the decimal and change the power on 10 to make them the same so that you can add or subtract them. This, adding or subtracting, I find it similar to fractions. You know how adding and subtracting fractions is difficult because you have to make sure the denominator is the same? But then when you go to multiply or divide fractions, it's way easier. It's the same thing with scientific notation. There aren't extra steps. You just have to remember the rules for multiplying and dividing with exponents. Okay, so think back to those rules. If you need to turn into a previous page to find those rules, you can do that.
mix up when multiplying or dividing.
So when multiplying and or dividing with scientific notation, you must remember and follow the exponent rules. So let's go ahead and look at a division problem. 2.025 times 10 to the 14th is going to be divided by 2.25 times 10 to the 8th. Okay? So here, remember this is just multiplication. And this is just multiplication. So if you want to look at it like this, sometimes it helps students if we view it or write it slightly different. And a lot of students, when I write it like this, they can see, oh, look, we can see these are similar terms or like terms, right? We can go ahead and divide these numbers out, and then we can look at, because we have the same base, powers of the same base, we can go ahead and use our exponent rules to work on this. So if we take 2.025 divided by 2.25, we are going to get 0.9. And then if we take 10 to the 14th divided by 10 to the 8th. Now, remember, when we're dividing like bases, we subtract the powers. So that's going to be 14 minus 8, which is going to get us 10 to the 6th. Now, that's not written in scientific notation. So you can write it like this. So it looks more like scientific notation. But notice, oh, that's on the wrong spot. So we're going to have to move it over one spot. Okay? So if we already move it over one spot, that's going to take one of these spots away. So that's going to be the 5th. So write this in scientific notation. It would be 9.0 times 10 to the 5th. And circle that one. Now, absolutely, you could have gone ahead and written this all the way out, put all those zeros out there, and then divided. But unless you have a large calculator, your calculator is not going to be able to handle this particular problem. So this is where knowing how to multiply or divide with scientific notation is going to help you. Let's do one more problem like this. 1.86 times 10 to the 5th. I'm going to talk loud since they're mowing outside. And we're going to multiply this times 4.8 times 10 to the 3rd. So, just like up here, we can multiply our numbers together. That would get us 8.928 times 10. Now remember, when we're multiplying like bases, and that's what we're doing here, we're multiplying like bases of 10, we add the exponent. So 5 plus 3 is going to be 8. I'm going to put one more here, and then you see if you can get the correct answer. Let's do a division problem. Do 3.46 times 10 to the 17th divided by 2 times 10 to the 9th. Go ahead and pause the video and try this one out. All right, you should have gotten 1.73 times 10 to the 8th. If you were able to get that, great. If you were not, go back up here and make sure that you're following those exponent rules. You can divide the 3.46 divided by 2, and then the bases, and like bases, when you divide them, you subtract like bases. So 17 minus 9 is going to give us to the 8th power. Thank you.